Hi, my name is Jacob Lauritzen, and in this video we're going to be talking about how to write a research paper for sophomore level college English class. Alright, I am making this video specifically for my 102 students, but if you're not in my class, feel free to watch. Hopefully this has some information that's helpful to you. Okay, so what I have up on the screen here is a template I've created to kind of show you what I'm asking for. It has a couple different sections to guide you through how to write a research paper, but I want to explain a couple things before I explain the template. First of all, there are so many kinds of research papers out there that I couldn't talk about all of them in one video. What I'm talking about here is this particular kind of research paper, which I've assigned my students, is basically a really long literature review that then takes time to explain what the literature says in a couple different sections. So this is not about conducting original research. This is about reviewing literature that is already published and synthesizing it into a new document. Make sense? So that's the kind of research paper I'm talking about. So if that doesn't apply to you, thanks for watching, but this doesn't apply. But of course for my students, I'm going to explain this in just a bit. Okay, so what I've done is in Web Study, I've posted a sample document where everything kind of grayed out is just an example and everything in black is actual writing, right, as a sample for you. Okay, so this sample here is 5 pages. Yours is going to be like 8, 9, but most of mine is just explaining. Okay, you're going to follow MLA citation style. So on the first page, you're going to have all the appropriate information. You're going to have your title, and then you're going to start with an introduction. Your introduction's purpose is to provide relevant information and to set up for your main argument that you will make throughout the course of the paper. Now, that doesn't mean that you're trying to be persuasive, because your argument could be that the research says this, right? And that could be your simple synthesis of what all the research says together. It doesn't mean you're trying to prove something. You're just saying what it says. You see the difference? Hopefully? Okay, so let me read an example. For many years, educators and lawmakers have been trying to reform the public education system in America. Landmark legislation such as President Bush's No Child Left Behind Act of 2001 and President Obama's 2009 Race to the Top program have motivated states to make changes to improve or measure student performance on standardized tests for reading and math, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so what you see here is it's giving information, right? It's not making a case yet. It's just presenting information. So your introduction would set up and lead the reader into a main point, which you would say at the end of your introduction. Now, your introduction doesn't have to be 1 paragraph. It could be 20. It could be 100, right? It's whatever finishes introducing the topic. That's how long it is. Okay. Once you've done that, then you're going to move over to the literature review section, which formally is called review of the literature. Now, for my students, in week 4, you're actually writing this section. You just copy and paste it over into this, right? You might have to make it a little bit longer for the research paper, but copy and paste. I don't expect you to rewrite something new for the research paper, because in week 4, you're writing this section. Okay, here your review of the literature is going to summarize all of the relevant information that's, possible for you to have access to within the confines of the length of the paper that I'm over explaining. You don't have to say everything there is possible to know about the topic. Just say all the relevant information for your argument. Make sense? So if you're talking about something like education, you give the appropriate background. If you're going to talk about technology in education, like I make my students write, then you're going to want to talk about technology too, and you're going to explain together what they have to do with each other. So what I explained in the last video is a literature review is going to try and do 3 things. One, it's going to summarize sources. 2, it's going to synthesize those sources together. To 3, explain what they have to do with each other. Okay, if you have questions, check out the other video. After your literature review section, then what I've asked my students is to write a statement of the problem, which is you basically identifying in a short section, doesn't have to be super long, explaining what the problem is. And again, as with all sources, you should bring in, as with all sections, you should bring in sources to explain the point. So here I give a statement of the problem. Despite the efforts of educators and legislatures, finding a solution to improving reading scores to meet state requirements is easier said than done. So I'm setting up a problem. And I end by saying, the following paper, you're saying what you will do and what you won't do. I may have used the term statement of methodology. What you're doing is you're saying what you will or won't talk about right here. Now you've already done your literature review, but this is relevant because your next section is your discussion. This is where you can really focus on explaining what the research means, right? Okay, so let me explain what these all have to do with each other. Your literature review section is you're saying what they say, right? You are saying their argument is this relates to this other paper here, right? When you get to your discussion section, you are explaining what this means big picture, what this means to do with the problem, and you're starting to go deeper, and here is where your analysis of the research topic comes out, right? Because so far you've synthesized during your literature review, but you haven't really analyzed your argument, what you're arguing about yet. Make sense? Yes? No? Okay. I kind of explain it in the template here as well. Once you've done that, you've basically explained everything you need to explain. Then you have your conclusion section where you restate your main point, and then you summarize some of the relevant evidence so that the last thing the reader reads is kind of a shortened version of what the whole paper said. Hopefully that helps you out. Okay, so let me explain a couple things I didn't say before. Each section has a heading so that you can tell where it starts and stops. But you'll notice it's not in bold. It doesn't have any extra spacing before and after, because the whole document in MLA is already double spaced. You don't have to do that. It's just there. And so the sections I required my students to do, you have an introduction which doesn't have a separate title. It just has the title for the paper. Review of the literature, statement of the problem, discussion, and conclusion. So that's going to guide you through the whole process. Now, let's talk a little bit about how to present this to someone. One thing I require my students to do is to post this on the discussion forum so that we can talk about it. The idea being, this is kind of our version of a conference, right? And the only way that we actually get to interact with each other is not in person because it's an online class typically, but it's you presenting your work to the class. Other people get to see your work because you've posted it, and then they get to talk about it. Now, it doesn't have to be final draft. That's not what I'm asking for. I just want you to present, kind of what you have when it's time to send it in, and then they can comment on it, which hopefully can be done in time to help you get some work done. So we can all kind of benefit from what each other said. The annotated bibliography that you post in week 4 also can help out everyone as well. The idea is not to create research that no one else sees, because that's useless, right? The world grows and gets better and learns when we share what we know. And that's why we share our research. That's why we show our sources. And that's why made this video. So hopefully this is helpful to you. If you have any questions, hit me up in the comments and I'll do my best to answer them. And thanks for watching.